Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live, brought to you 1 mile from Mar-a-Lago, which you will be reminded of several times during this broadcast, because you will hear airplanes going over that you don't normally hear, because more than likely the president-elect is back at Mar-a-Lago, or is expected back, because those airplanes are sent over here to avoid Mar-a-Lago when he's there. Now, one of the reasons he got Mar-a-Lago for such a low price way back when he bought it was because airplanes fly over it, and they still do. But you enjoy it so much, doesn't never bothered me. I used to stay there quite a bit. Back in 2003, 4, 5, when I ran for president, until we bought this condo, and it's basically 1 mile behind me in that dark area. So I'm a little confused at the Senate selecting John Thune. And I'm confused because they wouldn't have the majority without Donald Trump. Let's face it. McConnell has done certain things that are good and certain things that are bad. And he's been extraordinarily disloyal to Trump. And I think for the worst reasons. I think it has something to do with his father-in-law being made a multi-billionaire by the Red Chinese government, even though he's from Taiwan. His father-in-law giving him millions, and he changed his position on China. Trump being so tough on China. I think that a lot of the problems for Trump come from China, because he's the first American president to really crack down on him. He's already putting together an administration that has to have them really upset. And when you see people like Walz and Marco Rubio and these people who have dedicated their career to calling China out, when people like Biden have sucked their backside forever and gotten fortune for it. Well, so has McConnell. McConnell's wife, father, is one of the richest men in Red China. He makes his money from Red China. And the absolute reality is that if you're Taiwanese and you're making money from Red China, there's something wrong with you. And by the way, McConnell's positions on China all changed when he started getting the bucks. And also, he did everything he could to block the investigation of his pal Joe Biden, including threatening Senator Johnson, making sure he didn't fund his campaign, because Johnson was probably, and Grassley, the only two senators that really went all out in trying to expose Joe Biden. Why? Why was he protecting Joe Biden? Because in the book that originally revealed Biden, the chapter right after, the two chapters on the Bidens and what crooks they are, is followed by the very, very suspicious $5 million payment to the McConnells from a father-in-law who was very, very close to the Red Chinese government, and then a big change in positions. So the guy who, the way the crookedest guy in Ukraine made Zelensky a millionaire and made him president ultimately, that's Kolomoisky, who was the biggest money launderer. This guy Thune, I mean, he was completely made by, he's McConnell's guy. But beyond that, this guy is completely anti-Trump in a way that's inconsistent with his being able to work with him. Let's listen to him back in 2016 when he wanted Trump to drop out. Do we have that, Ted?
From 20, this is after 20.
Well, I'm hoping, Leanne, to have other options.
Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. Would you support him?
Well, I'm hoping, Leanne, to have other options.
Donald Trump is.
Was that 2016, Ted?
This was 2021.
Oh, even more recently.
But here is
This
2016.
is when I went on this is when I went on 5 Sunday morning shows and defended the president.
Well, this is
And
2016.
Rance Priebus had quit on him, and then he made him chief of staff.
This is from 2016. This is a screenshot of what was said, of what he said at the time. This is a screenshot. Donald Trump should withdraw and Mike Pence should be our nominee effective immediately.
Yeah, right. That would have really.
This is what he wrote in 2016. What we just played is what he.
So now,
said in
he's going
2021.
to be the leader of the party that gave Donald Trump the most votes in history, with an agenda that's very difficult to get through. And how are you ever going to trust this guy to carry out your agenda when you know he's really a rhino and was up McConnell's backside during the entire time that McConnell was screwing around? And who knows what the hell McConnell was doing. I just don't trust a guy that gets $5 million from a Chinese communist. Let's also listen to him tell Trump he should stay out of the majority leader's race. Now, why the hell should the president stay out of the majority leader's race when the majority leader is the guy who carries his agenda in the Senate? That's totally ridiculous. Yeah, imagine if he said this to Ronald Reagan. He would have kicked his teeth.
Elect Trump involved in does he have a chosen preference in the Senate? Do you know, Senator? And will that come into play?
I don't know that he does. I'm staying in regular contact with him and with his team. And, obviously, if he wants to, he could exert a considerable amount of influence on that. But honestly, I think my preference would be, and I think it's probably in his best interest, to stay out of that. These Senate secret ballot elections are probably best left to senators, and he's got to work with all of us when it's all said and done. But whatever he decides to do, that's going to be his prerogative, as we know. But I think we're going to have that election next Wednesday, and we'll have a new leader.
How many is President?
I mean, what's in the secret ballot? Are you a bunch of little cowards? I thought we can do transparency in government. I mean, the guy begins by playing old politics. I thought we just had an election to reform things. And we're going to have a secret ballot. What, you're afraid to say you voted for John Thune? Well, if you're afraid to say you voted for him, you shouldn't vote for him. They're not, the senators aren't potentates of their own. They're responsible to the people. Their people have a right to know who they voted for. You don't have a right, John Thune, to keep it secret. That's one of the reasons why I oppose you. What's the use of being a Republican if you're going to play the same games the Democrats bet? We just ended up with the least transparent administration in history. We're going to start with you doing this crap. Well, nothing I can do about what the Senate votes for, but at least I would like to think that the senators of my party have their guts to take their masks off. I mean, it's the anti-Semitic guys and the Ku Klux Klan who put the masks on, not elected representatives of the people responsible to the people. God, I think it should be illegal. I don't think you should have the right to do that. Who the hell are you? You're a representative. This is a democracy. This is a representational democracy. But you take away the representational democracy when you go secret on this. Have you smoked cigars while you did that? And boss tweet around. Jeez, Democrats do that. So Thune got elected by one vote, apparently. Let's hope it works. Doesn't sound good to me. Doesn't sound like much of a start for the Senate doing any kind of job on their approval rating. What's the Senate approval rating? About 2%? The House is about 1%. Well, at least the House can have an open vote. And that will take place tomorrow. And we hope we have the majority. But all the people that Trump is appointing, we're giving it away. Hopefully we can replace them. You know, when you tell me it's a safe Republican district, I get nervous. Now, look, I want Elise to be the in the UN, but when you tell me that it's a safe Republican district and it's in New York, even if it's upstate New York, I don't know. I think we'll make that one. I think we'll keep that one. But we got her. Let's see how many we taking out. We're taking Gates out. We're taking Walls out. We're taking her out. Is that it? That the only ones we're taking out of the House? Well, Walls and Gates are in 65% or so Republican districts. So that should be pretty safe. If we had a little more of a majority, you'd feel more comfortable about this. But I think we will replace Stefanik, Walls, and Gates with Republicans. More than likely, but maybe I'm being unnecessarily nervous about it. So, what do you think, Ted, of this Ramaswamy Musk
What was
efficiency commission?
what was Simpson Bowles? What was that all about? Was that similar?
Similar idea, but I mean, it was it didn't have power. It just had suggestions.
Well, they're going to have some real power here. Of course, Elon Musk, just like this is a historic figure. I mean, the Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. You could combine all these guys of our time. And Vivek Ramaswamy, someone we got to know early on, Mayor. You understanding American politics maybe more than anyone. Saw that early. We had Vivek on a few times. What a sharp, ambitious man. So I expect a lot out of this.
I do too.
DOGE. Doge.
I was listening to the Communist News Network last night. I don't know why.
The Communist News Network.
Why?
We were watching.
I'm going to tell you why. Don't get angry at me, Chris. Chris Reddy's going to get angry at me now. But both,
MSNBC, MSDNC,
both Fox and Newsmax had a pre-recorded show on, and they just had announced the appointment of Pete Hegseth. I wanted to
nomination, yeah, and you wanted to hear some discussion.
So they one had
Gutfeld,
and the other had the
right squad,
right, and they both were pre-recorded before Pete was nominated, and I wanted to hear the debate on it.
Yeah.
So I put on CNN, and of course they trash it, although they did have a couple of Republicans on, I have to say, who defended Pete. So it was I hate to say this, it was a two-sided discussion.
Well, Carl Bernstein, what he have?
Oh, come on. He wasn't even articulate. I didn't even understand what he said.
What did he added nothing. Carl, what was it? Yeah. See, now they're going to clip this, Mayor. They're going to clip this now and say you were drooling on the air. Yeah. He added nothing to the discussion.
Watergate was worse.
Yeah, he's still living off a story from 50-something years ago.
And what did Trump do it? Oh, it's wrong.
Nasty guy. Just a nasty.
He's yeah.
Woodward and Bernstein.
Woodward and Bernstein, and a source close to the White House. That's somebody sitting on a bench 2 blocks from the White House.
Yeah. So what did you learn watching the Communist News Network?
Well, the Communist News Network was very tough on this efficiency commission, prejudging it, which I thought was, they had this woman on who claims to be some kind of an efficiency expert. She must be some kind of left-wing cuckoo. But she said, well, these things never work. What do you mean these things never work? Anytime you take over something, you appoint something or someone to evaluate it, to figure out how you can fix it. Gee, I hate to tell you, but I did it, and it kind of worked. I ended up taking a city that was the rotting of the Big Apple, Big Picture, Time magazine. And after 6 years of Republican rule, it was the bright, shining star instead of the best example of urban renaissance in America. All right? And I did it by cutting taxes and regulations and putting criminals in. I actually put criminals in jail. Can you imagine? That was revolutionary. Imagine if you did that now. And I made people on welfare work. It was scary, but they kind of liked it. And we took it down from 1.2 million to 500,000. Nobody's ever done that before, not even close. And all but 100,000 had jobs. And the federal government copied it and called it workfare 2 years later. I mean, all these solutions work. The only people who hide them from you are the ones that are carrying out a Marxist agenda, knowingly or unknowingly. I have to show them this, although I did use it on my earlier show, right, Ted? I think this is the jerkiest, stupidest thing I've ever seen. And the New York Times has beaten up Trump for
right here too.
Appointing loyalists. But they did exactly the same thing to me. They said everybody I appointed, worked on my campaign or supported me. This is what they would prefer. Trump stocks cabinet with disloyalists. So I said, when I got tired of the Times writing that, I said, I tell you what, guys, give me a break. Let me appoint people who agree with me to accomplish my agenda. Then when I do, and I do miracles, then next term, I'll appoint people who disagree with me and try to accomplish the same things with people who don't agree. Like, I'm going to lower taxes with people who don't agree that you should lower taxes. I'm going to reduce crime with people who believe in defunding the police. That'd be a real trick. I mean, it could be done if I beat the shit out of them, but I mean, it works a lot better if you appoint people that agree with you. Every president has done this. What did Clinton appoint a whole bunch of people that disagree with him? No, he appointed people who agree with him and wanted to sell the Lincoln bedroom. Right? What was that guy that did that? The guy who is against American parents. What's his name? Terry. I know his name.
Terry McAuliffe.
Who doesn't think American parents should have anything to say about the education of their kids. Should be like his mentor, Karl Marx. Children should be the property of the state as quickly as possible. Get those damn parents out. And then the attorney general, particularly if they're Catholics, will make them terrorists. God, isn't it great we're getting rid of that? Wow. It's getting really dangerous, huh? So I think we got to give Trump a chance to accomplish it with people who agree with him. If it doesn't work, then you just put people who disagree. And if he wants to throw out the generals who have screwed up the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and our military so badly, that our enlistments are way down, way down, way down, way down. And our standards are way down. And you're all upset about Pete Hegseth because he doesn't think women should be in battle. I don't think women should be in battle either. I'm sorry. I mean, women can do a lot of things and a lot of great things. But I'd much prefer to have a 6'2", 240-pound guy next to me. If, God forbid, I get very seriously wounded and he's got to carry me back to the hospital, then one of those women who were guarding Trump and couldn't, they were 4'2". How do you guard a 6'2" man with a 4'2" woman? or a 4'2" man for that matter. I mean, weak men who are too weak to carry out the function of being a firefighter shouldn't be a firefighter. Otherwise, people die. And it just happens to be that God made us differently. Now, I know you don't believe in God. So nature made us differently. If that makes you happier if you're some kind of agnostic or atheist. But we are different. And that's why the Italian boxer got out of the ring, the smart Italian girl got out of the ring when this a guy who put a skirt on punched her in the face. I would consider that abuse. The Olympics okay with that, though. Because they're part of the European. So, looks like a great group of appointments. A couple are going to have trouble. They always do. Generally, what happens in something like this is the vultures in the other party, in this case, the Democrat Party, will focus on one or two. They'll let a lot of them go through, particularly at the beginning. You're not going to accomplish much by holding them up, but they'll try to make one or two. And we may not know yet because he hasn't finished his appointments. And it isn't necessarily who you think. I mean, you would say probably of this group, they might be likely to go after Gates and Pete because the resume isn't exactly what they would like it to be. But that isn't it. They really go digging for some dirt. And if, God forbid, you got some dirt that may or may not be dirt and they exaggerate it, then they'll go after you. It isn't always the most obvious. It's whoever they think. I mean, there are a bunch of opportunistic animals, so it doesn't really, nor do they give a damn about the country. So, but I'm glad that he picked loyalists because I think he's got a much better chance of accomplishing. And I hope he finds a place for Bob Lighthizer. Bob Lighthizer is the best trade representative that ever existed. He, along with Trump, knows more about how to manipulate for our benefit tariffs than anybody in the world. To such a great extent that although Biden and Harris ran against him on tariffs, they continued all of his tariffs. Only Democrats could get away with lying like that, right? Right. So the Senate is now 53-47. That's been set. We have a leader that doesn't support Trump. And in the House, we may have a one vote margin when we're finished. And they better not screw around with Johnson. Come on. Johnson, okay, he's not perfect. I'm okay with him. I'm talking to my fellow Republicans who don't think he's MAGA enough or what. He seemed really good campaigning, and he's made a couple of compromises that are necessary in the practicality of keeping the government going. And we had a 2-to-1 separation of powers, right? We had the presidency and the Senate on the other side, and he was it with a majority of 2. I think he did a lot with a majority of 2. And it's going to be tough even with this, with a majority of 3 or 4 if Trump stops taking people from. But leave Johnson alone. If you give Johnson a hard time, I'm going to personally haunt you. Okay? Just let him. We've got a lot more important things to deal with than Speaker Johnson, who's doing a good job. There have been some interesting election analysis, and I thought the best ones were one in the Wall Street Journal and one in the Post, I think, by John Tillman. Basically, it was an analysis of the minority vote, and Jason Riley. It was an analysis of the Black, Hispanic vote and the Asian vote to some extent, and how what happened is a major realignment in American politics, particularly if it continues. And it's been going on now since maybe about 2000. Slowly, the Hispanic vote has been increasing. Bush twice, Trump the first time. Trump, even in losing, Trump Hispanic vote went up between 16 and 20. Now he got a majority of Hispanic males. He got over 40% of the Hispanic vote. We used to lose the Hispanic vote by 40%. You realize what a change that is? And the black vote, I think we were probably hoping to do a little better, but not with black males at 20%, where we were at 8. And if you take out New York and California from that analysis, and you take a look at the swing states, they had the black vote had something to do with the win in Pennsylvania. And when you consider that he improved substantially the black vote over his vote against Biden, and he was running against a black woman. Wow, something's going on. And if I commend both these articles to you, Jason and Tillman's. Tillman tells the story of being online in Chicago with a group of black and Hispanic people. I think he was at the Motor Vehicle Bureau, and they were harassing everybody and exchanging, discussions about 40 or 50 people, and realizing that they were going to go, they were going to go for Trump, and he was happy and surprised. So you got to watch that. That's a major change. So we've already discussed the Warrior Board, which is very necessary to straighten out the decline in people that are volunteering for our military services. It's very dramatic at a time in which any number of people will tell you we could be risking a world war with the way in which Biden got us into the difficulties in Ukraine, the difficulties in Gaza. These things never would have happened had he not gotten elected. You don't have to go any further than to realize that Putin attacked 3 times: Bush, Obama, Biden. Oh, gee, that one in the there, he didn't attack. I wonder why. Because he was scared. That's why. That's how you do it. You scare him. Yeah. That's what they mean by peace through strength.
Well, Mayor, now we want to bring on a friend of the show to discuss a very unfortunate situation. We obviously talked about our friend Michael Grimm last night, and we want to bring on Sarah Williamson from Newsmax, a friend of Michael's, to discuss, give us an update on Michael, but as of course also share with you how you can help Michael. Of course, you go to helpmichael911.com. That's helpmichael911.com. We're going to bring that up on the screen here.
There.
And we're also going to bring Sarah Williamson of Newsmax on to give us an update. Sarah, you're on with the mayor.
Hi,
Good.
Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you for having me tonight, and thank you for covering for such a special man and such an important part of the Newsmax family, an important part of New York as well. He's an incredible person. Lucky to sit by him every single weekend at the Newsmax desk. He's my co-host. We host Wake Up America Weekend together, and I've missed him dearly ever since this has happened.
Did you say this morning, because I heard you this morning talk about Michael, did you meet him in Ukraine or in
Indeed. So I'm a war correspondent, and I was sent by Newsmax. I was the first correspondent actually to be sent to Ukraine. I got there a week just before the war started, and I ended up being there for nearly 5 months. And Michael joined me on the on the assignment, and that's where we became friends, and we've been friends ever since. He was a great person to work for. We had such a great time together, as good as it can be in those circumstances, of course, but he was a great partner and a great colleague to have out there. And I remember the first time that I met him was when I was having a disagreement with another colleague. We were fighting over a story, and I said, "That's it." And I stormed out and I got in the elevator, and Michael hadn't even been introduced to me yet. And he followed me in just to make sure I was okay. And it just really, after that moment, I realized that I had a friend for life and what an important person he was.
Tell people what happened. I mean, we described it last night, but there might be people who don't know, because it only came out a couple of days ago, but it happened back in September, right?
Exactly. So Michael had every single weekend after we film our show, Michael leaves and goes and plays polo. He's an avid polo player and he's been doing it for years. And he loves his horses more than anything else in the entire world. And he was about to play polo, and he was taking his horses out for a ride. And it was honestly like a Christopher Reeve style freak accident. And he fell off. He injured his neck. I believe it was a fracture. And he was put into an induced coma, airlifted to hospital, and has been recovering ever since. Now, he has come a long way. He has come an incredibly long way. When I saw him last, he could barely speak, but I get updates from his sister and from his friend, and he is now able to speak again. He is paralyzed, but no one knows if that's permanent. You know, the more rehabilitation we can give him, the
Yes, of
quicker he
course.
get back on his feet. And that's why it's so important that everybody contributes to the GoFundMe so we can get Michael back in action, because this man's a Marine. Not only is he a Marine, he's an FBI agent. He's a former.
I know.
That man wears every hat, and he will not let this horse or this bring him down. So
I think you're absolutely right, Sarah. I know him for a long time. I know his FBI career quite well, where he did undercover work among other things.
Mhm.
This is an extraordinarily brave man, strong man, and I did talk to him very briefly on the phone yesterday, and he sounded like he's fighting,
oh,
and
he
I put my money on him.
absolutely. And something else that I think is really important to bring up is Michael's character and just how much Michael does for other people. Michael is probably one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life, and I'm so lucky to have him part of my life. He would give you the shirt off his back if he needed to.
No doubt.
Yeah, he has done. And John Tobacco actually brought up a story. I can't remember which hurricane it was, Sandy perhaps, where it ravaged Staten Island, and he was out there every day just picking up debris and bringing generators and helping the people of Staten Island. And in times like these, when you remember all the things he's done for you and all the things he has done for the community and for the people around him, and now you think, now it's our time to give back. We have to give back to a man who has done so much for the people around him, and it's incredibly important that we show him the respect that he shows everybody else.
Sarah, he couldn't have a better friend, and you two are terrific together. I watch you every weekend, and I was wondering what happened to him. I thought he was taking a long vacation or something, and then I
Yeah,
got this terrible news.
yeah,
And well, you're absolutely right. We're going to turn this around.
we didn't want to invade his privacy, but now it's just, sometimes you have to get things out there in order to better the situation. So
Well,
fingers
God
crossed,
bless
I
you,
can make it.
and you do a really good job.
Thank you,
God
man.
bless.
As you.
Well, what Sarah tells you, you just better do. You go to that GoFundMe help Michael 911.com. And this is a very expensive proposition. It's beyond, the capacity of, middle class or even upper middle class people. Michael is not a wealthy man. He's not poor, but he's not a wealthy man. And this takes wealth to do the kind of things that are necessary to give him a chance to be able to get the full capacity. But he's going to be back. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And this is a guy served our country in the Marines, served our country with the FBI, served our country in Congress, and has been on Newsmax now for about a year and a half on weekends, or probably longer than that, and then fills in quite a bit. So let's help Michael. He's helped us. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Glad we were able to do that.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. This is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with America's Mayor Live from 1 mile from Mar-a-Lago. I am not a person who gloats.
No planes for a minute. We haven't had a plane in a while.
I'm not a person who gloats over victory or defeat, or I'm people who get defeated, and I'm just reporting this now as a straight piece of news because you're not going to hear it anyplace else. So if I have to report it, you got to know it. So the American people are kicking the living daylights out of the two communist news networks. If you just want to take a look at that, there's some new information since then, but let's just take a look at, this was as of the November 8th. So that's just a while ago. I mean, it's gotten worse. Morning Joe is down 39 and 36%. Well, actually, it got to round that off at 40 and 37% in the first hour and the second hour. I guess Joe's parents or something probably, they supported me when I ran for president. I shouldn't be such a wise guy. They actually gave me a fundraiser. That's when Joe was a Republican. When then something happened to his brain and he became a bitter, nasty, vicious guy. I mean, really, he's a turncoat Republican, but he's like a vicious guy. And then he's
nasty guy,
crazy. I mean, first Biden was. It was awful that you were attacking Biden as being delusional. And then as soon as he got his head kicked in the debate, before the guy even got a chance to respond, we got to get rid of him. He's terrible. It's awful. I mean, so then Andrea Mitchell, she's down 40%. In fact, I'm shocked it isn't 100. Ari Melber, who you know I don't know, is down 50%. And Joy Reid is down 55%.
Jeez, I wonder why.
Well, the only way I know Joy Reid is I see the commentaries that the conservative podcasts pull out and make fun of her. I mean, this woman is like the modern definition of virulent racism. I mean, she completely despises white people, which is racism. If you despise me because of the color of my skin, it doesn't matter if it's brown or white or black or somewhere in between. If you make judgments about me based on the color of my skin, you're a vicious racist and you're stupid as hell. You know who would tell you that? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And any intelligent person, which excludes her. So she's down 55. Now, I don't understand how they could be down that much. They didn't have anybody anyway. Now, MSNBC is MSNBC is the worst by far. Oh, by the way, during that same time, not that I'm particularly in love with them, but Fox went up 58%. There goes one. There goes one avoiding Mar-a-Lago.
So
We'll wait for them.
So yeah, how do the people of Palm Beach feel about the new air traffic?
The first time they were very upset. After being treated to 4 years of Biden and Harris and the communist government, they're very happy. They'll take it. They're willing to have the
They'll
planes
take the
fly over
diverted plane.
to get rid of the communists so that we stop mutilating our children without telling the parents. You know, that's a little more important than airplanes. So CNN, which doesn't have any ratings at all. I mean, this group like had 30, 40 people that watched. CNN, even the parents don't watch CNN. Like, I don't think Caitlin Collins' parents watch her, or otherwise she'd have some kind of ratings. Or Erin Burnett, Anderson Cooper. Do you know who they are? Of course you know, because we put them on when they make jerks out of themselves. That's the only reason they're famous. They're famous because they put them on Fox, they put them on Newsmax, and all the conservative podcasters and commentators put them on and make jerks out of them. That's the only fame they have. So they're all going to be fired, or they're going to get salary cuts. And do you know how much money they make? Would you believe that Erin Burnett makes $6 million? Anderson Cooper makes $20 million a year. I don't even think he really could describe the American Revolution. And Caitlin Collins, who's just getting started, who made an absolute jackass out of herself in her interview with Trump, who helped elect him president, which should get them all angry because she makes such a jackass out of herself, gets $3 million a year. For what? She doesn't know shit. And she's a stiff. I'm imitating her. I'm Caitlin Collins. I know something, I think. So that's where they're going, downhill. CNN, they don't. You know where there are numbers that are statistically insignificant when you do analysis. Statistically insignificant. Statistically insignificant. Fox does better than both of them together times 2. And Newsmax is catching up on them big time, and they cut Newsmax out of it. I mean, all the left wing communists who own this network keep Newsmax off. So there was an excellent article, and I do not plagiarize, so I'm going to give credit to the person who laid this out, Liz Truss, who's the former prime minister, conservative prime minister of England. She made 6 points about how Trump's election can save Europe, which isn't a bad idea because we need allies, and they are sinking fast. I mean, they are overwhelmed with anti-Semitism, with Jewish hatred. They are overwhelmed with support for Islamic extremist terrorists. They are overwhelmed with Islamic extremists. I think France is down to work about 20 hours a week or something. Remember when they wanted everything over 30 hours to be overtime? That was about 10 years ago. So, and I used to travel to France like 2-3 times a year. And it seemed to me that, well, everybody was off in August. The whole country just goes away in August. And then they don't work during the week. Spain, they have dinner at 10 o'clock at night. And they show up sometime the next day. And then they have a siesta. They're very productive. Germany, they're supposed to whip you if you don't work. They don't whip anybody anymore. So here's what Liz suggests. One of the things that's going to really kick America into high gear, and Europe should follow up on, is drill, baby, drill. Forget this stupid, ridiculous, don't use our fossil fuels, because the whole green thing is a big con job to make people richer. That Trump should finish off the deep state, get rid of them mercilessly. And in England, they call them the blob. And number 3, the Bank of England, which is sort of like the New York Times, I guess, for England, wants to maintain uncontrolled immigration, dedication to net zero carbon, which means we'll starve to death, and big government. You should do just the opposite. Just like Ronald Reagan said, you read the New York Times very carefully, make notes, and then do just the opposite, and the country will do great. Now, and then, of course, she is advocating a free trade deal with UK, which apparently, when she was the Minister of Trade, she was very close to negotiating with Trump back before they cheated him out of the presidency. She is also recommending that he's got the power and the leverage to refuse to consider or pay the carbon border tax that is imposed in order to rid us of carbon. And he's just refused to do it. And if they want to continue to do it, impose tariffs, so they have to pay for their own carbon tax. And he said that'll, given the leverage America has, that'll stop it in a minute. This is one of those greenhouse gases bullshit. And then she says that they should do away with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, who now imposes a minimum tax of 15% on any multinational corporation. So anybody who imposes that tax put a 15% tariff on anything they send to us. So they pay for the tax. And the tax will go really quick. See, what the New York intellectuals don't understand in all of this opposition to Trump on tariffs is he's right and they're wrong, because he's a practical businessman and they're a bunch of eggheads. And most of these tariffs don't have to be imposed. Every time he talks about them, they just cave, like Mexico has already caved on a number of things, just on the fact that he might come into office. Also, right now, this is really hilarious. You really want to hear this. there's a conference going on in Azerbaijan. Why you would have a conference in Azerbaijan, which is dedicated to the genocide of the Armenian people, I don't know. But they have one in Azerbaijan, very close to Russia, and a brutal, brutal country. But they're having the COP29 conference. Do you know what the COP29 conference is? It's not about cops. The COP29 conference was put into effect by the Paris Accords, which Trump took us out of and Biden put us back in. And I'm just assuming we're out of them. In fact, I would roll over, I'm going to say my grave, but I'm not in my grave yet. But if if there's anything that he sees through, it's the climate change craziness. He's like me. I was asked once, do I believe in climate change? I said, of course I believe in climate change. Right? You can see. We're going into winter. Then there'll be spring. And then after that, summer. And then there'll be fall. I mean, I'm a music lover, and Vivaldi's Four Seasons taught me climate change. But what, you want me to spend money on it to change it? Well, that's what they're doing at the COP29 conference. They're having a big conference on how to reach a net zero, which of course you can't do if China and India don't agree, and they don't. So you'll cut out all your use of fossil fuels. They'll use coal like crazy. As long as they use, if theoretically this is doing damage to something, what does it matter? I mean, the atmosphere doesn't distinguish between China, India, and America. So if they're going to use the damn coal, why don't we use it? Because we use it a lot cleaner than they do. And it helps to make us rich and powerful and independent. And beyond coal, what about natural gas and fracking and oil and nuclear power? My goodness, sounds like America could be an energy powerhouse. You know, we've got natural gas reserves second or third in the world. We've got oil reserves pretty close, and we're not even finished, really. If you understand fracking, which I marginally do because I used to represent companies who did it in Texas, we don't really know if we've seen the full measure of the reserves. We just have to go deeper. We didn't know about it until 50 years ago. And then by going deep into the earth, we found oil there. And then when we moved out and we did perpendicular and hydraulic drilling right on the side, we found natural gas. And there's more natural gas than oil, but there's plenty of oil. Now, how about you go deeper? So far, no earthquakes. Nobody's died from it. And I drank the water. Do we have a picture of that when I drank the fracking water from the Marcellus Shale when Andrew was running? I'm still here. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. I drank a whole big thing of water. So they're having this conference in Azerbaijan. And I bet you didn't know this. I bet you don't know this, Ted. The prime minister or dictator or whatever the hell Azerbaijan has, Ilham Aliyev. Ilham Aliyev. He's the president of Azerbaijan that wants to eliminate all Armenians. But he told the delegates at this net zero conference, right? He told the delegates that there shouldn't be a double standard and that fossil fuels are a gift of God. How do they even pick this place to go? They want to do away with fossil fuels. This guy says that they're a gift of God. And he says, if you don't want to participate in this bullshit, come and invest in our oil and gas drilling in Azerbaijan. He's making a pitch for fossil fuels in Azerbaijan. And he says they're never going to agree to sacrifice their economic growth on the altar of Western green fixations. Well, this is exactly what much bigger countries like China and India, they would have to give up their development in order to sacrifice so that we can be carbon free, which might in fact starve us to death. Thank God Trump was elected because he won't go for any of this. And although I don't recommend becoming pals with Ilham Aliyev, since he wants to kill all of the Armenian people, I would say at least he's got a point about this. What I would suggest is, and with the team he's putting together, how about we dedicate ourselves to getting rid of the Ayatollah? And I'm going to tell you, until we do, you're not getting anywhere with peace in the Middle East. As long as the Islamic Republic of Iran exists, there will be no peace in the Middle East because they won't permit it. They are dedicated to the elimination of the state of Israel, to the elimination of the Jewish people. And then, of course, they always throw in, this should be very, very helpful to us, death to America. Now, with Trump coming in, a couple of things are going to happen. First of all, their main source of funding will dry up. What's their main source of funding, Ted?
We're talking about Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes from the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean,
no other
US.
country
Yeah.
gives more money to the Islamic Republic of Iran, the United States of America,
Obama and Biden administration specifically.
including cash contributions by
Pallets of cash.
By the money launderer, Prince Obama. In the middle of the night, in airplanes, not told to people until it was discovered. And it could be $1 billion or more.
And why'd they use cash, Mayor?
They use cash because it can go to terrorists. Half more of the budget of the Islamic Republic of Iran goes to terrorism. Hezbollah is expensive. Houthis are expensive. It takes a lot of money to wipe out 200 Western ships and American soldiers, which they've done in the last year. And the whole thing in Gaza cost a lot of money. You think the Hamas not going to use its own money? They're all was sitting in Qatar, billionaires. So this is a recommendation from Merrill Matthews at The Hill. And he says the scheme to assassinate the president-elect by Iran was an act of war. It's doubtful that the outgoing Biden administration will do anything but continue to give him money, right?
Right.
So the administration should determine whatever steps are necessary to end the reign of terror. That's the only way you're going to have peace in the Middle East. It's not a nice way to have to do it, but it's the only way to do it. And you think about it this way, right? As long as Iran exists, then Palestine is going to be devoted to the destruction of the state of Israel as a client of Iran. So for 30 years more, going back to Silly Billy, we have been dedicated to a two-state solution. For 30 years, I've been dead set against it because I'm smarter than they are. Or maybe I'm more loyal to my country than they are. You can't have a two-state solution when one state wants to destroy the other. To have a two-state solution, you got to make certain that the state you're creating doesn't want to create the state that's your ally. Oh, they also want to destroy us. That's why I'm a better American than they are. Can I pay attention to that? Clinton, to try to get some kind of a peace prize, gave away everything to Arafat. And Arafat told him to go to hell. Why? Because Arafat didn't want peace. Arafat, maybe like Zelensky, wanted war. Because you get a lot of money for war. Why do you think his wife is sitting in the south of France, a multi-billionaire? Arafat's wife. I mean, she had to be married to him for money. You ever take a look at Arafat? When he took that stupid thing off? Why do you think he wore that? You look like that, you wear that too. So hopefully this administration will do a lot of really quick things to switch this whole momentum that Iran has. Iran is very weak right now. This is a perfect time to put all the sanctions back on, to double and triple them, to cut them off from every country we can cut them off with. We're still the most powerful banking system in the world. If we cut them off, and we cut off the countries that trade with Iran, Europe will stop trading with Iran. They did before. I mean, Trump had them on their knees. Biden restored $100 billion to their economy. That's sinful. They're terrorists. They're murderers. Except for China, they've murdered more of their own people than any country on earth, as well as our people. They've probably murdered more Americans than even China has. So, big focus on Iran. And I like the team for doing that, because I think Rubio and Walz would tell you the same things if they were sitting right here. Now we've got the problem of Ukraine that he's been handling, which is impossible one. Ukraine is in a deadly stalemate, which results in nothing other than death and an enormous amount of money in a country that's one of the most crooked in the world. When you throw out that kind of money in a country that's the most crooked in the world, you got to believe that a lot of it is not getting to the battlefield. And don't tell me, well, like demented McConnell says, oh, well, we can be certain that the money is being used probably because we're going into the American military-industrial complex. I was going to laugh when he said that, because he's got to know, like I know, that the reason we have a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is because of the American military-industrial complex, because they haven't met a country that they don't bribe. Communist, fascist, democracy. They're all about making money. Did you ever hear of war profiteers? Well, we have them. Everybody has them. War is big money. And in a corrupt country, war is real big money. You think the oligarchs in Ukraine who created Zelensky are letting that little guy use all that money for something like war when they can get rich with it? It wouldn't be the second most corrupt country in the world if they did that. The guy who knows it best is Joe Biden, who participated in it big time. But from everything I know, from decent Ukrainians, it's more than just Joe Biden that participated in that. I told you, the next chapter in the book after Biden is McConnell. We can count on the American military-industrial complex. Yeah, we can count on them, all right. How about we find out what the money was spent for, which Biden has always refused to do? Generally, when we give away that kind of money, we provide for an accounting. But this is like the money Adams was giving away, except much bigger. No accounting. We have no idea. I can't tell you that money I can't tell you that a penny of it got to the battlefield. Or all of it. Nobody's ever bothered to do an accounting. We just gave them $160 billion. And now we don't give them what they need to win, which we'll get back in a minute and explain to you what that is. And you'll see why we're in a box that we have to figure our way out of. We'll be right back.
Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quick's. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours.
And we're back. Something went off. I don't know what it is. We're back. This is Rudy Giuliani, and we're back with America's Mayor Live. Well, U.S. Navy Lieutenant Bradley Allen Foster's story is one of valor and selflessness. Lieutenant Bradley was born and raised in California, and inspired by his father's service, he had a deep calling to serve his country. He became a pilot in the United States Navy. He underwent air and combat training, and he was later awarded the National Defense Service Medal. His goal was to be the best pilot and leader he could be, and at the same time, be the very best husband and father to his wife and his beautiful baby girl, Audrey. Tragically, Bradley's promising life was cut short by a helicopter crash off the coast of San Diego, California. Tunnel to Towers was there and provided his family with a mortgage-free home to take that burden off them. It's the least you could do. Bradley's death is a stark reminder that freedom isn't free. It comes at a steep price, sometimes the ultimate price, for heroes who serve our country and our communities. Show your support for heroes like Bradley and their families and donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers. That's T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. $11 a month, and you'll fulfill your obligation. God bless the men and women who serve us. Well, let's finish up and discuss Ukraine for a moment, because this is an enormously difficult puzzle for President Trump and for whoever it will be, Rubio and all of the others who will be involved in foreign policy, the Secretary of Defense. Right now, if we look at the map, right, Russia controls, and Russia wanted to. I mean, this whole war was about a first goal and a second goal. So Russia achieved its first goal. So when we say Ukraine won this war, be a little careful. It won it in the sense that Russia did not take over all of Ukraine, but Russia got what it wanted, which is the land bridge from Russia to Crimea, which is this. So they control that part of, and that's probably a little generous. And they're battling over Kherson again, right? So they probably would like to go further, because that would give them just almost a complete access to the sea, and they cut Ukraine off. But I think that's not a problem. I think we could get them to agree. If they don't take it in the interim, which I don't think they will, we could probably have them agree that this is where they stop, and hopefully we get some cutbacks. Now, Ukraine has taken That up there in Russia. There's something in my ear. Uh, Kursk. In fact, in the last 2 days, they inflicted on the Russians the biggest casualties of the war, something like 1,900 and 1,100 Russian troops were killed in the battle to keep Kursk. It's now occupied by Ukraine. So after being prohibited by Biden from going into Russia, eventually Zelensky made a move, went into Kursk, took it. It's not a particularly important city or big city, but it is Russian territory, and the first time Russia's been invaded since the Nazis did it. And now the Russians tried to take it back, and they were defeated over this weekend and lost about 3,000 soldiers. Now, don't count your chickens before the hatch, because this is why Putin has gotten 10,000 troops from North Korea, who are now being a very difficult situation of integrating them into the Russian army. They're having terrible problems. Remember, the North Koreans have never seen the world, anything outside of North Korea. This isn't true of, it's not true of China. It's not true of Russia. It's not true of Iran. They have some access to the outside, and all of them have some access to the internet. And North Korea is completely cut off. As far as I can remember, and this goes back 10 years, but I think it had one television station. And you can only sell television in North Korea with one channel, access to one channel, because they're so good at. So these 10,000 soldiers, this is the first time they've ever been any place but in the cage. It's like letting them out of a cage. And they were in Russia, and the Russians don't know what to do with them. But they're going to go let them die in Kursk. That's Kim Jong-un's contribution to Putin. He'll give him 10,000 of his people to die. So maybe they'll take Kursk back. Maybe they won't. Now, Biden will not allow Zelensky to attack Moscow. Zelensky wants to, and tried to persuade Biden that he should be allowed to cut off all power to Moscow, not to bomb them, because that might cause World War III, but to cut off all power. Now, I don't get how you would worry about bombing causing World War III, but Putin's going to let you cut off all power to his capital and his main city? And that's not going to have the same repercussions as if you bombed it? I sure as hell would react the same way if you cut off all power to Washington or New York. So Biden, and it may be the only sensible decision of his entire life, because he's been wrong, as former Secretary of Defense Gates said, on every foreign policy decision for 40 years. And he was in the Obama administration. Biden says, I can't let you do that. I can't take a risk on it, And also, even if they keep it limited, they'll probably just take out Kiev, there, the capital. Just take it right out. You know how easy it would be with an intermediate range ballistic missile to take out Kiev, maybe 2 or 3 of them? And the fallout, the nuclear fallout, would not affect, I don't think, Russia if you used strategic nuclear weapons. But you could take out the entire capital of Ukraine. I would think you could pretty much predict that Putin will do that if you cut off power to Moscow. This alone is taking a risk. So what does Trump do? You can't let Russia win. At the same time, you can't let Ukraine do what it needs to do to win, which is to inflict enough damage on Russia so Russia will pull out. Because Russia won't pull out, Russia will attack. And unless we want to commit NATO or American troops, Ukraine is not capable of moving them out of Ukraine. They've been trying that for 2 years. So you got to come up with some kind of face-saving compromise, right? you've got to put some pressure on, significant economic pressure on Putin, which means that our European allies who are encouraging us, to stick with Ukraine should stop double-crossing Ukraine by doing business with Russia. I mean, look, with the exception of one or two, they're all, and I'm not talking about Eastern Europe, now I'm talking about Western Europe. They're all a bunch of scoundrels. And you got a socialist communist government in Great Britain. You've got that, I don't know what the hell is running France. Germany is half out of its mind. And they talk tough about Ukraine, and then they don't support them, and then they do business with Russia. They're going to react very, very differently with Trump. They always do, because they're very weak. So a very strong person with a very strong country can be very, very effective. So we're going to have to spend some time putting maximum pressure on Russia, make them feel pain. If they don't give up some of this, give some back. And then you got to tell Ukraine, it's too late. You can't get them out completely. And anyway, Crimea is Russian to start. Crimea is Russian. If you took a vote 20 years ago in Crimea, they'd want to be part of Russia. If you took a vote in some of these other places, they would want to be part of Russia. They don't anymore because of the attack. The best example of that is my favorite city, Kharkiv or Kharkiv. You pick your pronunciation. That's my favorite city because I did a whole security plan for them in 2014 and 2015 after the last Russian invasion, which they fought off successfully. They fought this Russian invasion off successfully. And if we settle the damn thing fast enough, they won't get Kharkiv. It's the second richest country in Ukraine. It's right on the border of Russia. So it's tactically enormously important. And most importantly, it's a group of converts. What I mean by that is it was probably one of the most pro-Russian cities in Ukraine until Putin stupidly attacked them and started killing them. And they fought him back and they defeated him. Their mayor lost his legs and then he lost his life. But these people have now for 2.5 years fought off the Russians. And I don't know how much longer they can do it. But if you can keep Kharkiv and Kyiv and all of this, that's a victory against supposedly a world power against a little country. I mean, maybe the only correct thing Kamala Harris ever said was Russia's a big country and Ukraine's a small country. Well, it is a small country. So what you can preserve for it is its two main cities. It's really pro-Western population because the area they're holding right now used to be pro-Russian. Now, it switched a lot because of the atrocities of Putin. And we should get as much of it back as we can. But to carry this on without any prospect of victory, without any prospect that we're going to allow Ukraine to go into Russia and attack them and back them off, is just getting people killed for nothing. Getting people killed so that war profiteers can divide up the last $8 billion that Biden gave them without any accounting. Nobody can tell you how it's being spent. And when you know Biden's history in Ukraine, you get a pretty good idea of how it's spent. So this is going to be a much tougher one to resolve than in Israel. In Israel, we have a honest, extremely competent ally who actually is doing our dirty work. I mean, they're killing the people who kill us. We're not. And you let them go and Hamas is gone, Hezbollah is gone, and Iran will be quaking in its boots. As far as I can tell, Israel has figured out to the precise mile every single nuclear facility in Iran. And you tell them take them out, and they'll take them out, just like they took out all the generals. And someday, if I'm ever allowed to, I'll tell you how they did that. So these are the things that are coming up. And let's hope before we get there, the dumb idiot that we saw before talking to Trump today, smiling and laughing like a hyena, doesn't do any permanent damage to us. The Trump trials are sounds like the hush money trial is going to go down the drain. When you consider that Kamala Harris's husband paid hush money to the nanny that he impregnated, what the hell is Trump being prosecuted for hush money if it really was hush money, which was never proven? So that case is going to go down. The case in Arizona where Trump was not indicted, largely because they figured if they indicted him in a fifth trial, they'd get him elected by acclamation. The judge in that case got caught being a massive, crazy, nutty Kamala Harris and Biden partisan, making all kinds of statements about how terrible Trump is, how awful he is, how he's like Hitler. This is the judge they put in charge of the case where I'm a defendant and they want to put me in jail for the rest of my life. Well, so are the other judges involved in all my cases. You think Judge Howell in the District of Columbia isn't as crazy as this guy in Arizona who had to be recused? He just got caught. Howell has put January 6 people in jail and then told the other judges she didn't think they gave heavy enough sentences. I mean, I spent 5 days in front of her. She's bloodthirsty. The judge that won't let me have a bank account has got a background as a Democratic activist that sense of ethics or honor, you would recuse yourself. But no. He's denying me every exemption that everybody gets. They want to take my furniture. They've tied up all my bank accounts. They're doing the best they can to destroy my business. I can't make out a check right now. So you better not ask me for a check, because the judge has denied me the exemptions that are usually given to most people. And I'm a resident of Florida and I have a Florida homestead. And he's dying to decide that. I don't understand how a New York judge would decide a Florida homestead. Also, just in case you're wondering, he set the trial down for Trump's inauguration. So I can't go. Should this be happening in America? Of course it shouldn't. And I'm raising this as an example of maybe 1,000 other people, some of whom have been treated even worse, like the ones that have been put in the prisons that are worse than Guantanamo and are still there for doing nothing, for participating in a Pelosi orchestrated, hysterical overreaction to what was instigated by them. And the most serious crime has been shockingly ignored, and that is the murder of Ashley Babbitt. I delivered the evidence for that murder 6 days after January 6th, and the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia, who should be ashamed of himself, has done nothing with it. I'm more than happy to volunteer to prosecute that case. And I try it as a murder one. She was 5'2". She had no weapon. She committed no violent act. On her side of the transom that she tried to go over were 8 police who didn't stop her. In fact, they actually backed off and let them enter Pelosi's chambers, bang it down. They moved away. So she got up, maybe 10 cops here behind her who could have pulled her down, 5 or 6 cops on the side where the murderer was. And all of a sudden, a gun appears out of nowhere. The guy doing the film knows exactly where the gun is. Gee, I wonder how he knew that. And she gets blown away. And when he testified before the grand jury, he didn't even say the obligatory, I was in fear of my life, because that's the only justification for doing that. You got to be in legitimate, reasonable fear of your life. How was she going to kill him? What was she going to do to kill him? He had a gun. He had 8 cops there. When she jumped over the transom, they could have just put handcuffs. She'd be on the floor. You put handcuffs on her. Imagine we switched that to New York City and we switched the races around. What would happen? Well, the same thing should happen if we're in America. But we weren't in America then. We were in a place controlled by insider trading Pelosi and by McConnell. Who wanted Trump out of there in the worst way. God forbid they ever turn the page at the book. We take a look at the father-in-law who's multi-billionaire due to the beneficence of Red China, who's also given millions to Senator McConnell. Hopefully this is going to be unraveled, and it has to be. We can't do let's just forget about it and move on, because it'll happen again. We did it last time. If Donald Trump has ever made a mistake, the mistake he made is not prosecuting Hillary Clinton. She should have been prosecuted. Comey should have been prosecuted. What Comey did is unforgivable. He jeopardized a massive national security tool of ours, Pfizer, by lying. He carried on an investigation for 3 years of something he knew was absolutely untrue and paid for by Hillary Clinton. He fixed her case. And you let him go free, and then a guy like Ray feels free to do all the things he's doing. Do you really think they're investigating the attempted assassination of Donald Trump? Why the hell would they investigate an attempted assassination of a guy they tried to frame 2 times? I mean, one they did for 3 years, Russian collusion. The other one, they suppressed a hard drive when it led to his impeachment, and it would have exonerated him. And they suppressed a hard drive when it led to the fraudulent election of Joe Biden. I'm not talking about counting votes. I'm talking about depriving the American people of the knowledge that that man was a 40-year criminal, which is proven beyond any doubt by the hard drive. The FBI suppressed it for 17 months. I don't think they would have done that if Comey was sitting in prison for the crimes he committed. I don't think Ray has got a pair of you-know-what. I don't think he'd do that if the guy would fold like crazy. I'd put him on my list of people I could turn like that. Man has no character. He comes in front of the Congress earlier this year and says, "Oh, there are a lot of terrorists in this country. So many, we don't even know where they are." What about talking up 3 years ago when they let him in? Or 2 years ago? Not going to do us any good now when you don't know where they are. It would have done a lot of good if you stood up to the president when he first opened the border to all the criminals. And you know that this is a disproportionate number of criminals if you know anything running the FBI. So let's hope we clean this out right away. That guy should be out of there by now. And what the hell they're doing investigating Trump's attempted assassination is absolutely ridiculous. This is a group at the top of the FBI that has tried to frame him several times using criminal methods to do it, as well as many, many other people. So we're entrusting them with the investigation of an attempted assassination. This is going to end up in history being worse than the Kennedy assassination. I mean, the questions left behind by the Kennedy assassination, can fill volumes. It'd be the same thing here. A lot of people with a motive to kill Donald Trump. They should be the top suspects. That's how you investigate a homicide. I give you a course on it if you want. I've prosecuted lots of homicide cases and some of the worst. You begin with the person with the biggest motive. So you tell me who had the biggest motive to kill Donald Trump. You don't exempt them because, they're too important. Then maybe you missed the killer. Well, we're going to see who he appoints tomorrow. We're going to see how the Democrats line up. They are going to take on one or two of them, guaranteed. It's almost part of the game, right? We've got to figure out who they are. And I can't wait for this period of time to go by because we're in peril. We don't have a president unless it's Obama. And he's I don't know what he is, but the guy you saw on the chair with Trump today was he looked happy as hell. I don't even think he knew. I think he knew what he was doing. But so pray, please pray for the people of Ukraine, and they're being treated so horribly by their corrupt government. Remember, it's a corrupt government that we're supporting in Ukraine. That doesn't make Russia right in what they did. It makes Russia very wrong. But when you deal with a corrupt government, you got to be careful about how you give them money so it gets to the right place, as opposed to just splashing it all around. But when you consider that Ukraine was the crooked Democrat cash cow for the last 12 years, well, it makes sense, right? Pray for the people of Israel because they've been double-crossed by their biggest ally, and the ally they've never double-crossed. And that'll be straightened out. And pray for the people of the United States that we get delivered without any further damage from this odyssey with communism that we've had. And we get it over with. But we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 on Frank's speech. And then we'll see you here at 8 on X. Well, they're both on X, actually. And we'll have plenty more for you. So, God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given